Welcome to the Stoic Bodywork Podcast, where we focus on balancing the body, opening the mind, and awakening the spirit. I'm Octavia, your co-host. Just a quick reminder, all the information shared here is for general informational purposes only and isn't intended as professional, medical, or legal advice. All right, let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Stoic Bodywork Podcast. I am joined by Octavia, my co-host. Say hi, Octavia.
Hello, everyone. Octavia here, and it's great to be on another episode. Thanks for having me along, as always. Let's dive in.
So today's episode is a follow-up to the episode we did with Cassie. Cassie came on last episode and to talk about meditation. Cassie is the editor for Norse Panda LLC, which is my publishing company. We do a couple different things. It's kind of like my creative company. Stoic Bodywork is the, physical training, functional training, therapeutic bodywork, and then Norse Panda is kind of like my creative, we'll call it creative endeavors. We do everything from 3D printing design. I do CAD design stuff for that, as well as custom part making, and then the publishing for the books and also the publishing for the digital stuff. So this podcast, for example. So Cassie came on, and again, she's the editor. So she often has to deal with my thought processes and, my written examples of how I explain things. And she got the idea I talk about meditation a lot. So she wanted to come on and she wanted to learn about meditation. So she came on and we talked about it. And honestly, if you didn't listen to that episode, if you're just catching this one because you want to learn about meditation, go back and listen to that episode because it really shows the reality of how people perceive meditation, how it gets talked about in the public eye, the pitfalls that can come from, not having certain understandings of different pieces of meditation, as well as actually just what meditation is. And so Cassie kind of worked through that with me during that conversation. And she learned quite a bit, as well as she learned how much she actually was meditating without really knowing it. Which I find is true for a lot of people. So today we're going to jump into everything I know about meditation. And it's quite a bit because I used to teach it. But I thought we'd start off with just some examples. So Octavia, could you just give us a list of like all the different types of methods, 5 or 6, like there's Transcendental and New Age and all that stuff. Just give us a list of the methods out there for meditation.
Absolutely. And I love how you set that up because it really is true that a lot of folks are meditating without even realizing they are. But yeah, let's run through a handful of the well-known methods just to give everyone a taste. So you've got transcendental meditation, which is often mantra-based. You've got mindfulness meditation, which is super popular now and really comes from the Buddhist tradition of just paying attention to the present moment. Then you have things like loving kindness meditation, which is all about cultivating compassion. There are body scan methods where you focus on different parts of your body. And then you've got things like Zen meditation, which has a whole structure of its own, and even newer approaches like guided visualizations or modern apps that guide you through it. So those are a few flavors. There are many more, of course, but that should give everyone a sense of the landscape.
So that is, a darn good list there's just a lot of different methods out there. And to give you a little bit of background, I started with Zen years and years and years ago. And it was what I consider traditional Zen meditation, which are grueling meditations for a specific reason. We'll get into that a little bit later. They cause a certain reaction in you that helps you understand what you're doing and reasoning for doing it. But first, let's start like I do with most things. Let's break down the word. Let's break down the word meditation, what it really means. And then we'll dive into the difference between meditation and mindfulness. A lot of people are listening to mindfulness practices and not really learning how to meditate. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves in the industry when it comes to teaching meditation. I want to teach you today what meditation really is. And it's very, very simple. So let's start with the word. The etymology of the word meditation comes from 2 specific words, at least the English language etymology. They come from the Greek word meditare and the Latin word meditatio. So Octavia, could you break down both meditare and meditatio for us?
Absolutely. Let's break it down. So, as you said, the English word meditation really does come from those 2 roots. The Latin meditatio basically means to contemplate, to reflect, or to ponder deeply. It's got that sense of really thinking something through or dwelling in a contemplative state. On the other hand, the Greek meditare is very similar. It also means to think, to consider, or to exercise the mind in a focused way. Both of them really give us this idea that meditation at its root is about focused reflection or a deliberate mental exercise. So that's really where the word comes from. And from there, we get all these different traditions that have sort of spun off.
And that gives us the breakdown of what meditation really is. Now, there's one other piece here that I would be remiss not to add. The Greek spun off to two words in Hebrew, haka and hana. Now, I am not pronouncing those properly. My Hebrew is terrible, so I apologize. But those two words mean to sigh and murmur. And the reason I bring those two words up is because they are used in conjunction when talking about what the definition of meditare would be from Greek to Hebrew. And the reason for that is Greek language is a vast, vast language. It's like 220,000 some odd conjugations. It's just crazy. There's so many words. But when we talk about the action of meditation, those two words do a really good job of bouncing us forward through that meditare understanding of, oh, this is about some sort of sighing contemplation, like that heavy sigh of like, okay. And then the meditatio is, again, that I'm going to contemplate something. I'm going to be using my mind here. Well, those things all start with the combination of the mental action and the breathing. So when we break it all down, meditation, just the word, is awareness of breath. That's what all of those definitions, past and present, really key us into, is that meditation happens when we are aware of our breathing. To get a semblance of the reasoning that is so important, let's have Octavia break down the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous responses for us.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that. So, the reason that awareness of breath is so central is because when you focus on your breathing, you're basically tuning into the part of your nervous system that helps you shift states. So, you've got your sympathetic nervous system, which is kind of your fight or flight, get up and go system. It's the one that activates you when you're stressed or when you need to take action. And then you've got your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest, calming side. When you become aware of your breathing, you're basically engaging that parasympathetic side. It's like a doorway into calming your body down and bringing yourself into a more relaxed, contemplative state. So, in other words, by focusing on your breath, you're actually helping your nervous system shift from that active, maybe stressed out mode into a calmer, more open mode. And that's really the foundation of what meditation is all about.
Now, to go a step further, one of the very important pieces as far as all meditation goes, and as well as the description that Octavia just gave you, has to do with what's occurring in the body during that action of taking control of the breathing. As she mentioned, the parasympathetic state, the rest digest, that's part of the autonomous nervous system. The autonomous nervous system is the part of the system that does it automatically. It does everything without us having to think about it. That's your heartbeat, your blood pressure, your breathing on occasion, your digestion. The system takes care of those things without us having to do any input. We are, as Stoic Bodywork is built upon, 3 health bodies: the spiritual health body, the mental health body, and the physical health body. In this case, the mental health body doesn't have to do those things for the autonomous nervous system. It's fully controlled by the body. The body takes care of it. Breathing is the only part of that system that we can consciously take over. You can't take over your heartbeat as much as you might try. You can do action to increase it, and you can do things to relax it. But you can't sit there and be like, beat, 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 beat. At least I haven't met anybody who can. But breathing, you can. You can say, I'm going to take a deep breath, or I'm going to take a slow breath, or I'm going to take a shallow breath, or a quick breath, or a slow. You can do whatever you want as far as taking control of the breathing. That is the mental part, the mental body, linking to the physical health body. So the action of meditation, which we're going to come back to in when I really dive into the 3 pieces that make up the practice, the action of meditation is taking control of your breathing, the awareness of breath, becoming aware of your breathing and controlling it. I won't end the episode on that, but that's where we could end the episode as far as now I have now taught you what meditation is. It's that simple. Controlling and being aware of your own breathing. That gives you control over the parasympathetic nervous system. Very powerful tool when it comes to anxiety or other, spiraling out of control or having panic attacks or moments. It is the one thing you can physically do where you take control of the system. You are taking control of the nervous system by controlling your breathing. It's why, we talk about using breath in therapeutics. And, they used to say, the old breathe into a brown paper bag for an anxiety trip that was really CO2 based. We were talking about carbon dioxide, controlling the levels of CO2 in your body, but it was partially, being mindful of your breathing. The one I talked about with Cassie was Lamaze breathing, which is, she had used during her pregnancies. Just real quick, let's have Octavia break down Lamaze breathing for us.
Of course. So, Lamaze breathing is a perfect example of a focused breathing technique that a lot of people might have heard of in the context of childbirth, but it's really a mindfulness tool. Essentially, Lamaze breathing involves using patterned breathing to help manage pain and to help you stay calm and focused. So, you might have a pattern where you take a slow inhale through your nose and then a controlled exhale, or you have a certain rhythm of breathing that you focus on during each contraction if you're in labor. But the key point is you're using your breath to stay present, to stay calm, and to manage the sensations in your body. And that's a great illustration of how taking control of your breathing can give you a sense of control over your experience. So it's just one example, but it ties right back into that idea that meditation and breath awareness go hand in hand.
And the act in Lamaze breathing where they use the ha, he, and ho, I was talking to Cassie about this. Those come from the traditional Chinese medicine set. Now, I don't know, I never really looked into where Lamaze got it from, but here's my guess. In traditional Chinese medicine, there are sounds that we call the healing sounds. There's 5 major sounds, 3 of which are the ha, he, and ho. I was taught 7 total, but I get them mixed up. And I do believe I made an incorrect statement during the last episode. So I wanted to correct that real quick. There was 2 in there that I don't think were accurate. I'm just remembering them incorrectly. Maybe we can have Octavia. Can you, do you know the 5 sounds for healing in traditional Chinese medicine?
Absolutely. I can help clarify that. So, in traditional Chinese medicine, the healing sounds are a set of specific tones that are associated with different organs and emotional states. The 5 traditional ones are linked to the 5 elements. So, you have a sound for the liver, which is often the sh sound, almost like you're telling someone to be quiet. You have a sound for the heart, which is often described as a ha sound, kind of a gentle open sound. You have a sound for the spleen, which is often a hu sound. For the lungs, you have a sound that's kind of like a snake hissing. And for the kidneys, you have a chewy sound, sort of a blowing sound. So those are the 5 core healing sounds. And yeah, there are variations where some systems you add 1 or 2 more, but those 5 are the core that connect each sound to an organ and an emotional element. And it's very possible that Lamaze borrowed or was influenced by that idea of using sound and breath together.
My background comes from not only just the Zen side of things, but also Qigong. I would say, as far as meditations go, Qigong and Tai Chi has been my longest practice. My original practice was in Zen meditations. Again, we'll get into that here in a bit. But with the Qigong practices, we often follow what's known as the triple burner. So the upper, lower, and middle dantians. That is the ha, he, and ho sound. To go one step further, you will find that sounds, which I did talk to Cassie about, are part of a lot of different meditation practices. But this gets us into the differentiation between what's meditation and what's mindfulness. The sounds and the breathing patterns, they are the meditation side. So what you're doing as far as the controlling the physical form with controlling the breathing, being connected mind and body, that's the action of meditation. What you do with that meditation is the mindfulness practice. So, Octavia, could you give us just kind of a basic overview of mindfulness?
Absolutely. So the way you can think about it is that meditation is kind of the tool or the technique, and mindfulness is what you do with that tool. So mindfulness is essentially the practice of bringing your full attention to the present moment. It's about being aware of what's happening right now without judging it, without trying to change it, just noticing it. And you can do that with anything. You can do that with your breath, which is often what people start with. You can do it with the sensations in your body. You can do it with the sounds around you, or even your thoughts and emotions. It's really about using that meditative focus, like you said, that linking of mind and body, to then be fully present with whatever you're experiencing. And that's really the difference. Meditation is the tool, and mindfulness is the state of present moment awareness that you can cultivate through it.
And I would say that is half accurate. No offense, Octavia, but having taught meditation, I can tell you This is the biggest pitfall in all meditative practices when people try to do that mindfulness piece. And that is what all of the methods out there are designed to start with, which is why people get lost, or the reason they never really go forward or create their own practice is because they get stuck in this understanding of the mindfulness side and not the meditation side. I'm going to say this probably a bunch of times more in this episode. Meditation is simply being aware of your breath and controlling it. You can do that at a stoplight. You can do that in your bed. You can do it out in the woods. I don't care where you do it. That's part of the process, but the action of meditation is the awareness and control of your breathing. The set and setting piece is the part that most people get taught about very early on. Find a nice quiet place, blah, 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 blah. The intention piece is the part that most people fail on or never get taught. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and we're going to dive right into that because this all comes from alchemy. And a lot of people think alchemy, oh, okay, let's turn lead into gold and all that stuff. Well, alchemy is a 3-piece conjecture. It is the mind, body, and spirit on the physical plane, quote unquote. If we're using etheric physics and talking about alchemy, we talk about the physical plane. The physical plane is a harmonic system in which, and I know I'm losing everybody on this, but that's okay, is a harmonic system of vibrational frequencies that we call light, that we agree do certain different things. And the practice of alchemy on the physical plane was to be able to turn one of those harmonic frequencies into another. Okay, cool. Not many people have ever pulled that off. And if they did, we'd see it and, there'd be a lot more going on. There are a lot of people out there still trying antimony. The reason it costs more than it used to is because people still try this stuff. Antimony is a metal. But alchemy, the practice, also included providing all of those theoretical pieces to the mind. That's really where it differentiates into a mindfulness practice, is we go from the physical practice of trying to turn, let's just make it simple, lead into gold. And then we have the mental practices, which follow the physical basis. And this is why I really like, personally, again, why question, spiritual question, why answer, spiritual answers. The why behind a lot of my practice is I like using the physical to then supersede into the mental and then spiritual. That's why I prefer Qigong and Tai Chi. Physical practices is why I started with Zen, a physical practice, to then meditate and then to have a spiritual link to that. In the mental side of alchemy, we use all of the alchemical processes. I won't bore you with the list. It'd be a whole nother episode to go over all of them. But we have, this set of things, the steps that turn things into other things and do alchemical processes. It's really the origination of, some level of chemistry. In the mental side of that, the mental practices of alchemy, we have what's known as squaring the circle. Well, squaring the circle is a physical practice, right? If I draw a circle and I put a triangle inside of that circle, I can then make a square, and that square will be in the center of that circle. Thus, I have squared the circle. I can then draw another circle inside of that square and keep on going all the way down. That is a physical thing. I can show you the geometry on a piece of paper. We can all learn to square a circle. Bringing that into the mental space actually gives it a third dimension. So it makes it uniformly indefinite. So the alchemical processes, when I learned those, I then learned the mental faculties to use those, which is where a lot of true alchemy gets done, turning lead into gold, right? Turning negative thoughts into positive thoughts, turning, flaws into boons. These are the processes where a lot of people never get to see the alchemical side in the mind. And that's honestly where I think alchemy is better practiced. You do the physical form of it to kind of understand what you can do with it mentally. All of that aside, we have squaring the circle. The circle represents everything outside of you, right? The laundry list of things you have to get done, the laundry itself, the dishes, this, going to the store, picking up the kids, getting ready for bed, getting ready for tomorrow, all of the stuff, do social events, society in general, all of the things outside of you. That's what the circle represents. Well, I want to square that circle because I want to be able to have a practice that's for myself. So I make the triangle. Triangle has 3 points. The 3 points of the action, intention, and set and setting make up squaring the circle. So to do a full meditation practice that includes meditation and mindfulness together, we must have all three pieces. Octavia, anything you would like to add in before I go any further with this?
Shay, absolutely. And I really like how you're framing that because it's a great reminder that it's not just about sitting quietly and being aware. It's about having that intention and that setting and that whole structure that you're bringing to it. So the way you're laying it out makes a lot of sense. And I think the only thing I'd add is just that a lot of people get a little tripped up at first because they think, oh, if I'm not perfectly calm or if my mind is wandering, I'm doing it wrong. And that's not the case at all. It's really just about bringing that awareness and having a framework that works for you. And then, as you said, once you have those three pieces, you're really able to create that complete practice that goes beyond just the basics.
You described the exact pitfall everyone falls into, that having to clear the mind. Cassie talked about this. She was like, well, if I don't clear my mind, did I fail? Absolutely not. Those three pieces, ready? So let's break it down. We just broke down the definition of meditation. Meditation is the awareness of the breathing and taking control of it. That's the action of meditation, right? You can have other actions that go along with that. You can do Tai Chi, Qigong, you can sit Zazen, you can do the mantra, do whatever you want with it. But the action is the start of the process. Before that, two other key pieces need to occur. Set and setting. Let's talk about that for a second. Set and setting, for most people, should be, when you're first starting out, a nice, quiet, comfortable space. No, you do not have to worry about your posture of making sure your back is straight and sitting in lotus position and doing all this other. No, no. Okay, that's a part of a practice, not meditation itself. You can then work into that if that's something you want to achieve. Sure, certainly. This is where I'm going to harp on yoga a little bit. And I'm going to premise this with, I do love yoga. I think it's a great active rest day practice. I think it overstretches a lot of people, and people who just do yoga also need to be doing some sort of strengthening training. But I think most true yoga practitioners and or teachers would agree with me there. And I think they're incorporating that into their structure and routines more often now. But yoga is a Western understanding of Ayurvedic medicine. I know everyone's freaking out right now by me saying that. Yoga was invented by the West. It is a piece of Ayurvedic medicine. There's no such thing as a yogi in Ayurvedic medicine. There is yogic practice, which is an intentional, that's the next key word here, an intentional use of the breath to massage the internal organs for an outcome, right? So it's twofold. There's the action of the controlling of the breath, and then there's the intention of using that breath to massage the internal organs for an outcome. The set and setting for that is typically in a class structure or with a professional so that they can guide you through it. That would be known as a guided meditation. So using that example and then fast forwarding into the triangle, set and setting, again, should be either learning to meditate, with a professional, or a quiet, relaxed, atmosphere that you're not going to get distracted in. And then eventually that can progress to moving meditations that I used to do Tai Chi in the park with a bunch of people walking around screaming. People would walk up to me and be like, hey, can I practice it? I'll be like, yeah, sure. Jump behind me. Just follow along as best you can. Like, it can get crazy, but set and setting doesn't matter once you have, control over that practice. That's mastery. So set and setting, super important, but now into this intention piece. So we're fast forwarding into this intention piece. We're using that yoga piece as an structure, whereas yoga is the Western practice that has kind of forgotten a little bit that it's part of an Ayurvedic medicine system where the breath was supposed to be massaging the internal organs for an outcome. Intention. Octavia, can you give me, I would like Merriam-Webster's definition, but can you just give me a flat definition of intention?
Absolutely. So if we just go with a nice straightforward definition, intention is simply your aim or purpose. It's what you mean to do or the goal that you're setting for your action. So in other words, it's the reason or the focus behind what you're doing.
And that is the part where everyone fails because no one ever taught them that. It's a hidden piece in meditation practices that I don't think they realized they tried to steal and failed. Zazen had this built in. So Zen meditations is based on the practice of Zazen. Zazen has multiple different functions. The position of Zazen is the sitting with your legs bent, sitting back on your heels, keeping an upright spine and focused on keeping perfect alignment while breathing from top to bottom, sending the breath from the upper lung into the lower body and then back. It's a constant up and down forcing of the pressure. You feel that pressure literally massage your spine. And then eventually, if you sit there long enough, your legs go numb and it's excruciating. It's just a very painful practice. At the same time, there's also the Zen meditation of staring and crossing your eyes, which also causes pain and discomfort. You'll find a commonality here in Zen meditations. Those are to focus the intention, to deal with the pain while still staying aware and keeping control of the breathing, but forcing yourself to be able to do that so that you can do it anywhere at any time under any circumstances. That was the original Zen meditation practice of Zazen and the cross-eyed staring or staring at a wall. They forced the intention by adding a pain element. Yoga, modern Western practices, tries to force that intention by providing a relaxation protocol, and it doesn't quite work. So some yoga practices are a little bit, harder than others, either by intensity or just due to the poses that they're trying to perform. That gets you kind of partially there, but the relaxation element of relaxing into the stretch is supposed to be that intentional piece, but that often takes the breathing out. Now, there are a lot of amazing yoga instructors out there that make their clientele and their students aware of their breathing and continue to, force that during the practice. That's the right way to do it, in my personal opinion, because you're bringing that effort back to the breathing. Breathe into the muscle, breathe into that area of the body. That's the right thing. That's what they're supposed to be doing. In things like mantra-based meditations, so something like Transcendental, TM, I'll probably get in trouble because, they're all like kind of, I won't say it, but they're very specific about what you're allowed to say about them, not allowed to say about them. Look, it works for a lot of people. It's really expensive, if you ask me. And the mantra system is a subversion of the intention. The mantra isn't supposed to be the intention. The mantra is supposed to be the rhythm of the breathing. That's the differentiation. What you do with that then thereof is the practice. So again, like it's almost like these constant half truths of almost there, but not really. So, okay, off my high horse, let's step back. Octavia gave us a nice definition of intention. The intention is the part where everyone says, clear your mind. No. You don't clear your mind at the beginning. You go in with an intention and then remind the mind of that intention to keep it clear. I don't like to curse on this podcast all that often, but this is one of the times because I've taught this for many years and it upsets me to this day. It's bullshit to tell someone to try to like clear your mind. Oh, just let everything. No, that doesn't happen. It doesn't work. It's not how the human system is designed. You have to fight tooth and nail against that structure. That was what Zazen was designed to do, was to put you through such painful, excruciating methods that you were able to do that no matter what, even in a stressful environment, because you had to force through that at the time. I do not recommend traditional Zazen or Zen meditations for that reason. Most people will not do well with it. Even some of the Chan meditations on the Chan Buddhism side, some of those could be excruciating as well. That was like traditional Chinese martial arts for me was, having people, I know it sounds cliche, but like, yeah, stand on paint cans, hold jars out. But really it's just excruciating isometrics while still preparing your breath correctly and then taking impact and being ready for your surroundings. So yeah. It's BS when someone says clear your mind. It's also BS when someone says in your mind's eye. We're going to get into that a little bit here, but let's just keep reinforcing that statement of it's a triangle. The action is the awareness of breath and being in control of your breathing. The set and setting, that is the actual, building the base there. So the action and the set and the setting, the environment and the thing you're going to do there, that creates the base of the triangle. What brings that triangle together is the top point of that triangle, which is the intention. Once you have the set and setting and you've taken control of your breathing and you have a clear defined intention, could be super simple, could be simply, Cassie had a great one. Hers was to take a couple minutes in the morning just for herself to get ready for the day. Great intention. That could include in that moment running through the things she had to get done that day and making a clear list and defining like, okay, I need to do this before I do that. I got to do this before I do that. I got to get the kid here. I got to do that. That's a great use of a meditation. To tell someone to clear their mind and forget about those things doesn't help that person whatsoever. If you teach meditation, please heed my words here. Stop telling people to do that. You're not helping them in any way, and you're not teaching them anything. Okay, settling down, taking a nice deep breath. When you have that intention clearly presented, and then you can focus on that, it brings you into focus. That is when mindfulness can occur. You can then do a body scan. You can go over the laundry list of things you need to do. You can push away negative thoughts. You can focus on a single thought. You can focus on a single point. All of these amazing things can occur then in the flow state, the meditative state, once you've set that intention, because it is where you can bring your focus back to. The simplest way to start to learn how to meditate is to use the action as the intention. You are going to find a nice, clear set and setting. It's going to be comfortable. It's going to be quiet. You are going to think about taking control of your breathing. You're going to take a nice inhale, nice exhale. I prefer if you do it in through the nose, out through the mouth. Do 10 breaths. The intention is to count to 10, where every breath counts as one, either inhale or exhale. So inhale 1, exhale 2, inhale 3, exhale 4, so yada, yada, yada. Then the advanced practice of that is where an inhale and an exhale together, each is 1. So inhale, exhale 1, inhale, exhale 2, inhale, exhale 3. The intention again is to be focused on that breathing and to continue to come back to that breathing. By setting that intention and then creating that focus, you will find that extra thoughts will start to invade the space, and you will have to push that away because you need to come back to making sure that you're in control of the breathing and not just inhaling and exhaling without paying attention. You'll find when you're first starting out, it's pretty tough to get up to 10, especially if you're trying to do it where the inhale and the exhale together equal 1. That then progresses. You can pick whatever number you want and try to focus to get there. I can tell you, you start to get up to 50, you're crushing it. All right. So that is one of the most simple meditation practices and ways to learn meditation, by having the clear set and setting, whatever that is going to be for you, having the action of taking control of your breathing, and then having set an intention that is attainable and in this case reinforces that action. This is true for Tai Chi. It's true for Qigong. It's true for yoga. It's true for any other meditation practice. Stepping away for a second. Octavia, anything you would like to add there? That was a lot for me to have said.
Yeah, that was a fantastic deep dive. And I think you really hit all the important points. The only thing I'd really emphasize is just that it's so freeing when people realize that it's not about forcing your mind to be empty and it's not about achieving some perfect state. It's really just about having that intention and bringing your focus back. And I think the way you explained it makes it really clear that meditation is something anybody can do as long as they have those 3 pieces in place. So I think you covered it really well.
Thank you, Octavia. We are going to go into the intention a little bit more here, because I think this is the part where the advancement of meditation comes from really starting to define and whittle down and over time creating just a solid intention. Now, with that, what I can tell you is this is one of the processes. So in the process of wearing something down and refining it, and, you know, like the waves crashing against the rock and it starts to wear out the place. I had a teacher in martial arts who used to stand in the same spot every class, same spot. That spot was literally worn into the concrete from them standing there and doing that much. And you will find this with many master craftsmen or people who are just have mastery over certain practices, where they literally, their presence wears through their environment and reinforces that set and setting for them. This is when the set intention can become a physical activity. When I do Tai Chi, when I do Qigong, or when a really good yoga practitioner does yoga, or a sports player plays sports, or the crafts person starts their crafting, the intention that gets set brings the focus so that if they apply control of breathing, physical output, and mastery over that set and setting, the understanding of it, really knowing that set and setting, that becomes a meditative practice. So if I scan my set and setting, maybe I go to the park, maybe I'm here at Stoic Bodywork and I'm in our big training room here, or maybe I'm at home in my living room and, I set the setting up, and I have the action of I take my nice big deep breath inhale and I get set up and I get ready. And then I have the intention to practice Qigong. I am now meditating. My meditative practice in Qigong is typically intentionally one of a few different things, but one of my favorite ones to do is to pay attention to the balance of my body. How is my body balancing? Where is my weight transferring? And so in Qigong, we have what's known as standing meditations. You literally just stand in one spot. You don't really have to move. You can go through some light movements, maybe do the 5-element Qigong, or maybe you're feeling real physical that day and you do the Badwan Jin, the 8-sectional brocade, or maybe you decide to hold the golden bell, which is another one of the, that's a standing one where you don't really move at all. You hold the golden bell. Any of those with the intention of finding balance in my body is a meditation. And now I've taken the action and made it a meditation. That's no difference than the crafts person where they're like, okay, I have a crafty person who comes and sees me here at Stoic, and she makes earrings. And, she tells me a lot of times, like, she just gets lost in time, right? She just like goes in, and then all of a sudden she's like, starts on the desk, and then she's on the floor and she's like, she's making earrings, right? And as she goes and masters that function, that's a meditation. Maybe that helps her, push away the outside world. Or look, I harp on religion a lot because of, I believe, faith-based practices, the access to the spiritual health body can be corrupted very easily through dogmatic responses. So I would say I adhere to the understanding that faith is very important. I just don't know how many people actually have their own faith defined for themselves. I'll leave it as simple as that. Your spiritual practice is your spiritual practice. We don't get into that too much here, but with that, let's use the example of prayer. Prayer with intention is a meditative practice. No different than a mantra. Okay? When we put these things into, again, the practice, you can meditate anywhere, anytime, doing anything, as long as you have those 3 coordinate pieces. So that intention piece is really the part where everyone gets kind of held up or gets, maybe skewed to, oh, I have to clear my mind, or here's the big one, in your mind's eye. Well, let's break that down. If you're someone who teaches meditation or you're learning meditation, stop using that verbiage, please. It doesn't help anyone because, I'll have to back up. I'll correct myself. It helps some, not very many though. If you tell someone who's a very highly logical thinker in their mind's eye, it doesn't work for them. They have a mind's eye, but they're not able to access the imaginary state you're trying to put them in. That's not how their brain functions, right? There's a couple things you have to remember here. Not everyone has an internal dialogue. Some people can talk to themselves in their brain. I can chit chat all day long. I do it constantly. It never shuts up. My internal dialogue is a never ending stream. Other people have zero internal dialogue. Other people have varying degrees of internal dialogue. Some people can only see imagery. I'm actually terrible at seeing imagery in my brain. It takes a very well-worded, I was talking to Cassie about this, it takes a well-worded paragraph of imagery, people setting up a setting, and I still just get only like snippet blocks kind of pieces, functional ideas. I can't just like see colors and imagine like things. It doesn't work that way for me. I'm getting better at it. It's one of the things I actually try to train in myself to be able to do that, to make myself a better writer so I can imagine things that way. But not everyone has that. Some people can't have any of those. They just have to have an internal dialogue with themselves in the mirror if they want to talk to themselves. So when you say with their mind's eye, it doesn't mean anything. Okay. Really, that verbiage was supposed to be talking about activating the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is designed to pick up biophotons, but really lipid photons, or photolipids, I should call them, in the brain, in the central canal, so that it can figure out what's going on with the rest of the body. That would be actually. Let's see what Octavia knows about. Octavia, we're going to do a quick sidebar here. Can you tell us about the pineal gland and the photolipid response in the body?
Absolutely. Let's do a little sidebar. So, the pineal gland is this tiny pine cone shaped gland right in the center of your brain. And it's often associated with regulating sleep and wake cycles because it produces melatonin. But in more kind of esoteric traditions, like you mentioned, it's sometimes referred to as the third eye or connected to that inner vision. Now, in more biological terms, it is sensitive to light cues, and it does have a role in kind of detecting the rhythms of light and dark to help your body know when nighttime is sleep. But when people talk about this idea of the mind's eye or the pineal gland and photoreceptors, they're kind of referencing the idea that this gland might be involved in how we visualize or imagine things internally. Now, the whole photolimpic response is a more speculative or metaphorical idea, which is basically that your brain is kind of using these subtle cues to form inner imagery or to help you have that internal sense of vision. But in a purely, down to earth way, the pineal gland is really just this little gland that helps regulate your sleep cycles and is sometimes connected to those deeper, more intuitive traditions.
Okay, so with that, I won't go much farther into it. I would behoove you to dive deeper into the pineal gland and how it works and all that stuff. Because there we also have these photolimpic responses where the photolipids in the central canal can get blah, blah. I won't get into it. The reason I won't get into it is because Zazen meditation, the crossing of the eyes, is to activate the pineal gland. The painful point right in the center between your two eyes, right at the middle of your brow, that is like a string of fascia being pulled right on the pineal gland. It can become excruciating, but it's also how you help decalcify the pineal gland, which is a big thing in modern society where we have a lot of calcification of the pineal gland. And look, it all sounds woo-woo and it gets a little, we'll call it controversial and also maybe conspiracy theory. But with all of that, there's let's use that to jump into different methodologies and other ways in which the brain body connection can be used in meditation. I've talked about what you can do with it, how to get into meditation. There's other things like the Monroe Institute, which does what's known as hemisphere or hemisync, I think it is. And that's a trademark term. I always have to mention that about them, where they use tone carriers with binaural beats to help the brain, the left and right lobe sync up. There was a website way back in the day called Lunar Site that had a whole frequency list. I have it saved somewhere, actually. I don't even know if they still run that website, but thank you to that person if they ever hear this. That was an amazing website with all the different frequency and Hertzian range frequencies for different functions in the body, as well as we talk about the Schumann resonance. I talked with Cassie about middle C being tuned to 440 hertz instead of 432 hertz. There's just so much that goes along with all of these different processes. But let's break it down into something a little bit simpler. Let's just cover what I covered with Cassie, but a little bit more in depth this time with the brainwave patterns. So your day is mostly, actually, before we get that, Octavia, can you just give us the brainwave patterns? What is it? Beta, alpha, gamma, theta, delta. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So, yeah, you're on the right track. Basically, when we talk about brainwave patterns, we're talking about different frequencies that your brain is operating at, and they kind of go from the higher frequency down to the lower. So at the top end, you have gamma waves, which are like your highest frequency waves. Those are associated with really high level information processing, sometimes moments of insight. Then you come down to beta, which is where we spend a lot of our waking day. That's like your normal alert focused state. Then you drop into alpha, which is a little bit more relaxed, a little more calm, kind of a meditative or reflected state. And then as you go deeper, you get into theta, which is more like the edge of sleep, that kind of dreamy state. And then delta is your deep sleep wave, which is your slowest brain wave. So yeah, it goes gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and that covers the range.
Thank you, Octavia. So that range of brainwave activity, we have plenty of research, and we can measure them. There's a whole machine that does it. That's what they're measuring when they're doing brain studies for like sleep studies and those types of things. That system is adjacent to meditative practice in the sense of, like Octavia said, that alpha brainwave patterning area. That is kind of that meditative flow state where the flow state is actually when you dip up into beta, then down into alpha, and you just kind of dip back and forth. Gamma, I always get mixed up. I always put gamma in the middle. Gamma is actually the one where that's like high level cognitive function, like really focused in like an actual almost like crisis kind of situation, kind of would put you into that. But taking control of your breathing is what can help regulate you down into that flow state or down into alpha. The set and setting, same thing. So each of those pieces can help you bring yourself into one of those brainwave patterns. If I want to get into a gamma, my intention is it's go time, and my breathing is probably now elevated, and the set and setting is probably, either really intense training or maybe a really intense moment in life. Whereas beta is more of like, okay, like I have a task I got to get done. I'm doing it. And then you have the alpha, which again, more that, meditative, relaxed state. So again, set and setting there. Oh, quiet, relaxed, calming music. That would be the set and setting to get down to that alpha state. Then the controlling of the breathing, relaxed breathing, not quick breathing, slowing my breathing down. And then the intention might actually be to be meditating, or the intention might just to be relaxing. Maybe I'm doing like some nice, gentle stretching or something like that, or getting really deep into my stretches. Maybe it is a yoga practice and I want to get down to that alpha state. And then theta is that more, daydreamy, dreamy state. And of course, delta is the non-REM sleep. That's like out cold. That's like 0 to 4 hertz brainwave patterning. So the set, setting, intention, and action of meditation can help control the brainwave patterning. It can help control the neurological system. It can help. This is an interaction with your physical health form. And that's kind of the piece that when I ended, because I don't really teach meditation anymore, when I stopped teaching meditation, I was really at the point where I was just trying to get people to realize, hey, this meditation thing is just an interaction between you and your physical health body, and it links you to your spiritual health body. It's a conversation between those. A lot of people need to do psychedelics to experience that in a meaningful, rational way. I do not recommend psychedelics. It's a bad idea for most people, specifically psilocybin. I'm not a medical professional, seek medical professional advice. That is a time, and honestly, a lot of people waste that experience. I don't think psychedelics should be used as a recreational ever. I think the same thing about marijuana. I think the same thing about most drugs, including alcohol. These aren't really meant for enjoyment. They're meant to be functional medicines when possible. That's my own personal opinion. Do with it what you will. Live your life how you want to. The actions go the same way. And again, we get back to that alchemy thing. Alchemical processes were how we came up with these things in the first place. So all of that aside, when you're doing your meditation practices, the highest functional level you can really try to get to is to be able to do it in any set and setting. The action stays the same, taking control of the breathing, being awareness of breath, and then having this specific intention. And this whole conversation was really to get into this intention thing, because this is where I left off, again, teaching meditation. I found a set of intentions that make all of life a meditative practice. And they're very important. And I think as far as the mental health conversation goes, as far as the depression conversation goes, the book I'm currently working on or is being worked on will hopefully be published soon, Something Random, a proverbial guide to self-awareness and mental health, covers this in one of the chapters. There's two pieces of, and this was part of the conversation I had with Cassie, and I think it really opened her eyes to the intention piece. There's two questions I ask when I ask about intention. The first is, what are your intentions towards yourself? The second is, what are your intentions toward yourself? For and toward. Two different pieces of the equation. If your intention for yourself is to use meditation to better yourself, but your intention toward yourself is to have crappy set and setting and never take control of your breathing, you're failing. It's not going to work. If your intention for yourself is to be a better person in general, and your intention towards yourself is to meditate every day reflectively to figure out how to do that, success. You'll get there. All right. So linking the intention for yourself and toward yourself, that's where I left off. That was where I left off teaching people meditation. And unfortunately, many people fail at it. And it's actually one of the reasons I stopped, because the people I was teaching meditation to, all they wanted was me to tell them, breathe this way, breathe that way. Think about this. That's not meditation. Yes, there is such a thing as guided meditations, but that's not true meditation. And, maybe I'm being hypocritical, or maybe I just like to do things at the highest level. But if you truly want to learn how to meditate, all you have to do is figure out the intention towards your set and setting, the intention towards your intentions, and the intention toward the action. It all comes down to intentions. That is what happens when you square the circle. The circle is the outside world. The triangle, the act of meditation, the control of breath, the intention for it, and the set and setting, push all of that nonsense away from you so that you can focus in on yourself or whatever you need to be focusing on. And that creates the square inside of the circle. You can then put another circle inside of that and keep squaring the circle all the way down. You can go as deep as you want to do, or deep as you want to. But that creating the square, that's your space. Look, I don't get into conversations politically. It's all nonsense. Everything's nonsense. That's in the book too. Because that intention piece is missing. And Cassie challenged me on it a little bit. I say like modern society is lacking intention. She, gave some examples so far as like how it's just not used correctly. And, I'm still going to sit with my intentions is something everyone's lacking and never gets taught about. Okay. Yeah. People understand what they are. Cool. But I still sit on the fact that it just doesn't get used well and no one really gets taught about it. So if you truly want to meditate, if you truly want to better yourself with meditation or master meditation, you have to focus on the intentions. Before we time out with Octavia here, Octavia, anything you want to add to wrap up?
I think you summed it up really well. And honestly, the big takeaway is just that intention is the anchor. It's the part that turns your meditation from just a routine into something meaningful. And I love that you pointed out it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as setting a small goal for yourself or deciding what you want to get out of that practice. So I think that's a perfect place to leave it. And yeah, I'm just glad we could break it down that way.
Awesome. So moving into my kind of last piece here, that intention piece can take your entire life to figure out. Mine has taken me a very, very long time, and I refine it constantly. And this is I wanted to dive into this earlier when I was talking about like the waves crashing and the refinement. And I just didn't know how to like get into it because it gets very personal. But the intention piece is actually what the refinement's all about. I had an instructor, Dr. Fong, who would have said, this is meditation or that is meditation or doing this is, his refinement is what turned everything into meditation for him. He would say like everything's meditation. The refinement is what did that. The intention of it was what did that. He lived intentionally and he lived in the moment. And so that's another, everyone talks about living in the now, living in the moment, living in, being present in the now, being present in the moment. I've even said that before. That requires an intention. And once you can start to control that intention piece, everything else kind of falls into its place. And then you can start to refine it. You can boil down what that looks for you. What is the real set and setting for yourself? Okay, well, that requires the intention to know. Well, that requires self-awareness, and that requires focusing on yourself. And that is a great way to use meditation. Another great way to use meditation is to refine the action of just breathing or just being present or just focusing on getting, like Cassie does that couple minutes in the morning with her cup of tea to get ready for the day. Mine is Qigong or Tai Chi in the morning or my cup of coffee while I'm answering emails. Like That's how I start my day, but it becomes a meditation. Walking across a room can become meditation. It's just the refinement over and over again, the practice, and having the intention to do so. Once you have that figured out, you'll be able to do all the mystical things that they've always talked about, yeah, I'm sure there's a monk somewhere that can float in time and space. I'm sure they figured it out. The problem is that requires a very specific set and setting. This is one of the things Dr. Fong taught me that I don't know I can really give justice to, but I've seen some amazing and crazy things in my life. And in martial arts, I've seen some amazing and crazy things. I've seen it in martialism, and I've seen it in the practices. In Qigong, I've seen, an individual put chopsticks through solid pieces of wood. I've watched people break boards with their single finger, that solid oak boards, they can just break them with a finger. The intention and the focus that goes into that is extraordinary. I've also seen people go from complete and in total addicted lifestyles to serene, calm, helpful people who love and care for their families. The intentions is what drove that. And having seen these amazing things, what Dr. Fong used to tell me is it all has to do with circumstances. And the circumstances of the outside world are literally uncontrollable. I can't control in a hostile situation who gets hit, who goes down, who has, an injury. I can't control that. That's just up to the flow of the experience. I can control the circumstances inside myself that allow me to react to those situations. The same thing happens, and that's an extreme level in martial combat or in kinetic, combat. The same is proven true for the very calm, serene states that I find myself in with my clientele doing therapeutic bodywork. I can't control what happened to these individuals as they walk into the door. I can control the circumstances of myself so that I can bring forth the intention to help them the best way I can. And Dr. Fong would have told me that, and he did tell me that was the truest understanding of meditation I could have, is that intention and control of the internal circumstances. And as I write in the book, that control of circumstances is no different than magic. So yeah, I wholly believe that there probably is some monk on a mountain somewhere who can float with the intention to do so. As soon as you put a fly near them to experience that with them, it all falls apart. Because the set and setting has to be so very specific, and the control has to be so very specific, and the intention has to be so very specific that it's easy to break it down. And this is the lesson Dr. Fong gave me. Sorry, everything with us is always a little long-winded. If you make your set and setting so very specific that you can never find it, you never will. If you make your intention so hard it can never be achieved, you never will. If you making breathing and the action of controlling your breath so whimsical and mystical and outside of your ability, you never will. So start simple. Take a couple deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Find a nice quiet place to be by yourself or, with someone that you enjoy company of. And just intend to take 30 seconds for yourself. It's possible, I assure you. But again, don't make it too complicated because everything else is nonsense. You don't need to make your meditative practice nonsense too. Thank you for joining me on this episode. We will catch you on the next one. Always keep in mind, we are a proud affiliate of purebulk.com. You can go to purebulk.com and use Stoic Bodywork 15 for 15% off your first order, and just Stoic Bodywork for 10% off any order after that. You can get all sorts of supplements with PureBulk. Highly recommend everything they have. It's just a wonderful company to work with, and their customer service is amazing. Their products are top notch. Keep in mind that the book is coming. I do promise it is coming. Keep an eye out for Something Random, a proverbial guide to self-awareness and mental health. And for now, I'll leave you with a little bit of the outro music, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you.